The United States government believes that you owe them $60,000. Yes, you. Whether you voted for the current president or not, whether you voted for your current representative or not, whether you're old enough to vote or not, they believe that you owe $60,000 to this $21 trillion debt that they have created. They've borrowed money in your name with the expectation that you are going to be the one to pay it through all sorts of taxes, mainly the income tax. You work hard to feed your family. And what does the government do? The government takes part of your income so that they can put it on their financial statement and show it to banks and say, this is our income, lend us more money. This is why taxes keep going up. This is why the debt keeps going up. Now, the banks are not interested in getting this debt paid off. Banks make money by lending money. So they lend money and they lend more. And as long as you have the income to back up the amount, they're willing to increase your line of credit as long as you keep that money coming in. This is exactly the problem we have with the United States government. The banks understand that the United States government have a completely unchecked power to take money from your paycheck, and there's nothing that we can do to stop it. If we allow them to continue this, all that's going to happen is the debt is going to continue to rise, and they are going to continue to extract money from us every day that we go to work. Now, here's the thing. This money that we supposedly owe, $21 trillion, I don't know about you, but I didn't ask for it. I didn't receive it. I didn't sign for it. I didn't spend it. I don't know where it went. As a matter of fact, the government lost several $1 trillion worth of it, and they don't know where it is. So why should we be responsible for paying back a debt that we never agreed to borrow? That's not our problem. Now, here's another interesting problem. If you want to know where all this money came from, one of the biggest lenders is the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve, if you look at the money in your pocket, it has the name printed on the bills. But the Federal Reserve does not make the money. The United States government paid for the paper that goes into the presses. They paid for the ink. They paid for the employees who operate the machines. They paid to design the bills. They paid to operate the entire building and power. They paid to distribute all the money. And somehow this is called borrowing. In reality, we're not borrowing anything. This is an entire scam within the Federal Reserve system that basically makes it look like we're borrowing so that they can profit from nothing. The Federal Reserve had nothing to lend in the beginning. All the money was always printed by the United States government. But by making it look as if the Federal Reserve lent money to the United States government on paper, the United States government has to pay interest to the Federal Reserve every single year. This interest is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. This interest comes from our tax money. The truth is the Federal Reserve never provided anything of value to us, and now somehow we owe them an extraordinary debt. This debt is just the accumulation of all of this fake interest over decades. It's time we tell the Federal Reserve that we're not going to pay their debts. Here's another interesting proposition. When a bank lends to you, they want to know what your source of income is. Do you have a job? What's your job? Is it a steady job? Because they want to know that you're going to be able to pay off the debt. This is especially important when you borrow money for a house, a long-term debt that's expected to last 15 or 30 years. Now imagine if a bank lent to the mafia, knowing that the mafia's only source of income was through criminal activity, taking things that weren't theirs. Now imagine one day the mafia gets arrested and all of the people operating that business go to jail. Do you think the bank would be really surprised to find out that this mafia no longer has their source of income? That they're not going to be able to pay their loan? Would they really be surprised? In fact, they probably wouldn't make that loan in the first place if that's where they knew the money was coming from. Now look at the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve knows that the United States government's only source of income is taking money from people, with or without their consent. Is it really acceptable to expect that they should be repaid everything knowing that all of their profits were generated from theft of the American public? Is it really reasonable to believe that when a bank invests in an organization like the United States government, knowing that its sole source of income is extracting money from people with or without their consent, that it might not just collapse one day and they might not be repaid their money? Should we really feel sorry for them if they created all that value out of thin air? Again, they didn't print that money. The United States government did. The Federal Reserve has contributed nothing, and yet it takes everything. If the United States government started defaulting on loans, what banks would continue to lend money to them? This solves one of its own problems. Because we have a problem now where Congress is spending however much money they want, however much money banks will lend to them. We have no way to control them. We have no way to tell Congress enough is enough. We've been asking them to pass a balanced budget act for decades, and it's never going to happen because we don't have that control over them. But if they start defaulting on loans, banks will start to question whether or not they will be paid back all of their debts. They will stop lending money to Congress, and Congress will be forced to live within their means, just like everybody else in this country, just like you and me. Now, this is $21 trillion that we're talking about. That's $65,000 for every American, even the infants, even the elderly. And here's the problem. Every year, the money that they claim we owe them is going to go up because the debt keeps going up. Next year, it might be $70,000. When you have a credit card that's that high, you usually try to pay it down. But for some reason, Congress keeps asking for them to raise the limit. In fact, if you called your bank and you said, hey, my credit cards are all maxed out, can you raise my limit? They're probably going to say no. But they know that the government has unlimited taxing power to take from you. That's the only reason the debt keeps going up. There's no other person or business in the entire world other than government that can get a loan like that. Now, I know there are some die-hard patriots out there who really think this debt should be paid. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a $21 trillion fundraiser. You can go and pay online your $65,000 share. In fact, because we know there are homeless people who can't afford their $65,000. You might have children who don't have jobs yet. You might want to pay their $65,000 too. Now, if we can't raise the $21 trillion, you might want to join me and just say that $21 trillion, it's not my debt. We're not going to pay it.